This time I'm going to talk about my number 4 game in my top 10. It's Twilight Struggle. Twilight Struggle, the Battle of the Cold War. Card driven. GMT. That guy. Ananda Gupta and Jason Matthews. Twilight Struggle is a card-driven war game, and I use war game in the lightest sense of the term. It's got a warish theme, the Cold War. This is a game that Monica and I just finished, and she's a woman and she actually likes the game. Basically, one person plays the USSR, one person plays America. The game is 10 turns long, divided into 3 phases: early, mid, and late war. And you play cards on your turn. And it's your typical card-driven game, meaning that each card will have a operations value in the top or an event in the middle. And these cards will have either a red star for being Russian or Soviet Union, a white for being the Americans, or a neutral, which is either or. Some of the cards have been removed from the game after played. Otherwise, once you play them, they're just discarded and you shuffle them back in later. I like the board is pretty. There's a few mistakes on it, but nothing major. I fixed them with a marker. It's got the victory point track where the person, the team, whoever's winning. If the American player is winning, it's in the blue. If the Russian player is winning, it's in the red. If it ever gets to the 20, it's an auto victory. The game ends. Otherwise, the game is played a full 10 turns. Highest point value wins. And there's another way to lose, and I'll talk about that next. But it's got your scoring track on here. It's got the sequence of play. It's got some other things that help you. The military track ops, and I'll explain that. Your actual points. Your action round. Monica and I use little dice so we don't forget what action round we're on. When she gets done taking her turn, she pulls one off, and I pull mine off. And great use for micro dice. If you get in close, let's look at Thailand, because that's where we spent a vacation one year. It was kind of nice. If you look at the country here, it's purple, which means it's a battleground country. This is just the regular country, the yellow. Purple countries, the battleground countries, are more important for scoring purposes. The stability number is this number here in red, is a 2. Basically, it kind of symbolizes how stable the country is as far as its government and things like that. So Thailand's very stable, Laos is not. Japan's very stable with a 4. All right. The left side is for the American to put his influence, and the right side is for the Soviet to put their influence. You have to have at least that many, the number there, more than the other player to be in control of or have enough. You're basically making them your puppet as a superpower. So this here, 3-1, I have a value of 2 more than her or the Soviet, and so I would have control of Thailand. That's how you control the different countries. And then throughout the game, as you're playing cards, you're going to get these cards that come up, these scoring cards. And the scoring card cannot be held. You have to play it when you have it. And then you score a region. So if we're going to score Asia, we just look at Asia, and Asia is the orange. And to have a presence in Asia is just to have control of one country. So if I had 1 point in Indonesia, or if she had 1 point in Indonesia, she would have a presence in Asia. Now, to have domination is a little trickier. To have domination, you have to have control of more purples and control of more yellows. Control means that you have to control all the purple countries and more of the yellow countries. That's how these things work. And throughout the game, these are going to be scored multiple times. Real hot spots is going to be your Asia. Asia is always a big hot spot in the game, just like it is in real life. Southeast Asia is only 1 scoring card for that. But Europe's very important. Matter of fact, Europe's so important that if anyone ever gets complete control of Europe, the game's over with, you win. That's another way the game can end. Now, another interesting thing that the designers of the game included was the military ops. Now, to explain the military ops, I'm going to have to explain the DEF CON. Nuclear war! Woohoo! The way the DEF CON works is, when the game starts, we're at peace. Every time a card is played that has, they'll tell you to decrease or increase the DEF CON level, we could change this. Or if you try a coup in a country, a military coup, and I'll explain that later, you would degrade the DEFCON level. Now, this is the neat thing. If the DEFCON ever is degraded to nuclear war, the player who did it loses.
Dun dun dun!
Yeah, the player loses. And so that's kind of interesting. So you can actually, there's a strategy I've seen where you try to get the DEFCON down to level 2, and sometimes there's cards that you have to play. And if you have that card in your hand, sometimes you're forced to play a card that forces you to lose. This is really cool. But now how that ties into military ops is when you do coups or do little wars, and there's cards that let you do that, you get military operations. And if the DEFCON is at 3, let's say, you have to do at least 3 operations. Otherwise, the opponent at the end of each round, there's 10 rounds in the game, will get the difference in victory points added to them. Now, there's also the space race. The space race is a pretty ingenious thing they built into the game. You both start off at 0. Now, sometimes you're going to have these cards in your hand, and like I said, there are some cards, like this one here. If I'm the American player, this is a 3 Russian or 3 Soviet. I'm not going to want to play this because it's going to hurt me. Because if you ever have to play a card that's the opponent's card, you get to use the points, but because it's the opponent's card, automatically the text is going to happen. So, the designers included one way around that. There's a space race, and up here it says the value of the card is a 2. You can discard this 2, the discard pile, therefore the event doesn't happen. Then you can roll 1 die. Woo! That's not supposed to happen. You can roll 1 die. We don't usually use micro dice. And if that number is a 1 through 3, you move up in the space race. This is the old Cold War, you know, it ties right in. And then the first person to get there gets 2 victory points, and then the second person will get 1. And there's different little bonuses for moving along the space race. Some of them are more important, and, you know, some of them are pretty good, some of them are who cares. But that's how the space race works. It's just a way to get rid of cards is really how it works. The cards are divided into 3 decks. There's late war, early war, and mid war. The late war and the early war are a fairly small amount of the cards that are in the game. The mid war is the vast majority of the cards. You start off the game with the early war cards. You keep playing with those until you get to turn 4. Then you mix in the late war the middle war cards. You use all those cards until you get towards the end, until you get to turn 8, and then you mix in the late war cards. And it adds more history to the game, kind of makes things follow a more chronological order. And then there's the China card, and I got mine in a hard plastic case for like baseball cards or whatever. The China card is really interesting. The Russian player starts off with the China card. It's worth 4 military ops, or if you use all those ops in Asia, it's worth 5. And you use it, and then you pass it to the next player, and it goes face down at the beginning of the next turn. They flip it face up and they get to use it. And you can use it instead of one of your cards. It's a very powerful thing. And at the end of the game, whoever has it gets +1 victory point. And matter of fact, in one of my mechanized games, this was the difference in the game. I have all my cards in card protectors. And these are this is a first edition game, but I went ahead and bought from GMT the second edition cards. They sell just the cards because there are some typos. They tweaked the game a little bit because so many people liked it. It's a great. It's in my top 10 games. It's my number 4, and GMT is really cool. I sent them an email. I paid them, I think, was it $12, $10 or something, and I had it in a week. It took a week, and I was like, whoa. I guess I'm used to Korea where it took like 2 months. Yeah. The cardboard counters, the quality of the game is pretty good. There's lots of little cheat sheets and stuff that you can make on the internet. To be honest, we don't even use them anymore because we're so familiar with the game now. But they came in handy when we first had the game. I like this game for what I said in that first entry. It's a confrontational game. My wife was joking earlier that she was feeling tense and she didn't know why. Then she realized it was because we were playing this game. You start walking back and forth as you're looking at your hand, and there's just that's one-on-one confrontation, man. It's great. That's why I like this game, and my wife likes it, and so but she's a fledgling wargamer. She played Victoria's Cross the other day. She plays this, and we're gonna play some ASL tomorrow.